Hey guys, I'm the Nerd Doctor, here to diagnose what's wrong with your RPG game and here to help you fix it. But first, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons so that you can spam this content and keep me doing what I'm doing. Anyways, so today I am getting back to my roots of just talking about certain things that I just think belong in games. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what needs to be in DC20. And I will put a little quotation around needs. Is it an absolute must? No. But are they elements that I have put into my own games, homebrew wise, that I absolutely think make a huge difference on the game? Absolutely. The first one being is karma. Now, karma comes from Easy D6, and the way that it works in Easy D6 is that every time you fail an action, when you have to make a check or anything or an attack, and you can kind of get more specific this or more loose with this. It could be specifically attacks, it could be more specifically rolls in general, but every time that you fail a roll, you get a karma point. Now, in my games, once you hit 5 karma points, you can trade those in. You'll get a little inspiration token. You can make this so that you can have unlimited amount, or you can make it so that you only have one at a time. However you want it to work. There's also other rules like Battle Fury. That's an ICRPG, where every time that you fail an attack roll, you turn a D6 over, and once you hit 6, you can take that D6 and add it to any single one of your rolls. So there's lots of different rules like this. I like karma, for example, and my players love it too. And the reason for it is for people who have really bad rolling nights. We've all been there. We've all had those situations where you just spend an entire night failing rolls, like left and right. You just cannot roll anything good. And so this karma helps just kind of fix that a little bit. It gives them, you take that inspiration coins and you can trade it in for an advantage roll, and then boom, you're kick and roll. And it's just a little consolation prize, even if that advantage doesn't actually end up helping them. They feel a little bit better, because it can get really shitty feeling of just failing to roll all night. I know this can give players a little bit of an edge, but again, I have not seen it make a huge difference. It's actually been used in very crucial moments, and these inspiration coins can be given to anyone at the table. It does not have to be used by you. You can give it to someone who's in the midst of something really, doing something really important, and it's actually made it's saved a couple of my characters on more than one occasion. I know some people would argue, let them fall, let them fail. But I've just seen some people just get very frustrated and disheartened and let it ruin their entire session because they can't roll anything good. And it's just trying to avoid that. We're all here to have fun, so it's just there to help that. The second thing that I would add to DC20 is a concept called mastery. Now, this comes from ICRPG, and I know that I'd have to probably change that word in terms of how it works, because we use mastery a lot in DC20. In terms of combat mastery, weapon mastery, spellcast mastery, all those types of things. So what this concept is you put 20 circles on a character sheet, and basically every time you roll a natural 20, you will fill in one of those circles. Do it with a pencil, because you can repeat this over the course of a campaign. But this will actually show how different players progress at different rates. And at the moment that you get 20 nat 20s, you get a mastery skill. You get an extra talent, extra feat, or just a master skill related to you, related to your story, or related to your class. However you want to do it, it's completely freedom on how you want to give them that. You could give them an extra ability point for all I care, or you can have them, increase one of their skills, which is maybe capped, but they'll get that little extra. You can do whatever you want with this, but it's just this just goes to show this kind of concept of that, like, everyone doesn't progress at the same pace. And so it actually makes natural 20s even cooler, because you get to bubble in that every single time. My players love that concept. They have so much fun with it. And the last thing I would implement into DC20 is the 2-minute timer. Now, I think I talk about this in a couple different videos, but what I do with combat is between each round, I put up a 2-minute timer. And this 2-minute timer gives the players this time to kind of figure out, decide what they're going to do, work in a team, to what's going to happen. And what that also gives me is a little sidebar as the dungeon master to think about, okay, what are the monsters doing this round? And especially at the beginning of the combat, when I'm deciding what order do I want the monsters to go in? I got this concept from Professor Dungeon Master. He uses this in a lot of his narrative combats where he's got the 2-minute timer. Everyone rolls at the end of that timer, resolve everything based on those rolls and go. Obviously, DC20 is a little bit different. We're going back to actual initiative counters and who's going at one time. Even sometimes dual turns when you have 2 players going at the same time. But ultimately, it's there designed to kind of give your players a moment to kind of strategize, take a moment to read and kind of think about what they're going to do. Maybe some veteran players helping some newbie players out, and then again the DM taking a moment trying to figure out what they're going to do with their time, because you're doing so much reconciling during the combat. You're answering so many questions on each person's turn that it's hard to kind of think about, okay, what's the monster going to do? And I hate to lose time in the middle of combat to just take my time to think about it, look through it, and I like having that moment that gives them something to do. It gives me something to do. I say no questions answered during these 2 minutes so that I can focus and that I can answer those questions when it comes to their turn. And then that also means that, especially in DC20, that they are actually paying attention to what's going on in combat, because it's so important in DC20 to be paying attention to what's going on in the combat, because of course you can use those action points to do things like not only opportunity attack and spell duel, but I think there's going to be skills and abilities that come into play with classes and subclasses that is going to give people abilities to do certain reactions. And I think knowing what's going on in the middle of that combat, keeps everyone focused, and it's got that high level of drama. It keeps that high-paced a part of the game, while still taking a moment for a little mental break, not a mental break, but taking a little bit moment for the DM to organize himself before a round of combat. Of course, things are going to change. That's always going to happen, but I think those 2 minutes really, really help. So I definitely think it should be written as a recommendation for people, as take this 2-minute timer, build up the suspense, allow that team building to go on, and just roll with it. Thing that I think needs to be added to DC20 is a role called Face Death. Now, this is from Ironsworn. Now, what happens with Face Death? Now, this is after you have gone to death's door. You're dead. But by the rules written in DC20, you are dead. There's nothing else you can do. This is one last roll where fate really can decide how things are going to happen. And the way that it rolls in Ironsworn is, here's your DC. There's a strong hit, and there's a weak hit. Now, weak hit is you just beat the DC. If we want to keep it in DC 20 terms, 5 over the DC would be a strong hit. I usually keep this at 13 and 18, because 18 is a tough roll, 13 is doable, but there's still a really good chance of you failing. So you get the weak hit. Basically, you get one last thing that you can do before you die. You are dying and you are going to die. There's nothing you can do about it, but you get one last cool moment. Say something, do something, one last action on your turn before you are dead. And it may be, and I know with Death's Door, it's you're limited movement, limited this, limited that, one action point, but just taking that one moment to kind of give them a full turn, 4 action points back, maybe. Again, I don't know how exactly it would fit into DC20. I would leave that to Alan, the dungeon coach. If he wants to incorporate something like this into the game, I would leave it to him to decide how that happens. But whatever that weak hit is, you get one last thing to do, then your character dies. On a miss, the character just dies. That's obvious. The character dies, there's nothing else he does. The character dies, he took his one last roll, nothing you can do. On the last one, in a strong hit, rolled an 18, 19, 20, whatever it is. Basically, in this situation, he is faced with a god. It could be the god of death. It could be their patron. It could be someone important to the story that intervenes. But this is like a divine intervention roll. He's going to die. This divine intervention is going to happen, but with a clause. He's going to be revived, not maybe full health or anything like that, back to 0. Maybe stabilized. I don't know. However you want to rule it as the DM. However, if Alan wanted to incorporate this, however he would like it to apply to his rules. But this would come with a clause, meaning you're revived, but you now owe a mission to this god. You owe a promise, you owe a contract, whatever you want to call it, but you have to now fulfill that in order to keep living. If you go against that, you lose your life. Or, thematically, however you want to run it with your story. Maybe he's faced with divine mercenaries or divine headhunters that come out to take his life because he reneged on his promise or whatever it is. But he is there in Ironsworn. They have a track called Cursed. And this is what it would be. And so basically on this curse, it would actually remove or deplete some of its stats in Ironsworn. I don't know if I'd necessarily do that with a DC20 character. Maybe you do. Maybe that gives them a lot of incentive to remove that. Maybe they lose an ability. But no matter what, it's kind of this one last ditch effort. It is such an epic moment, and that if you roll it just right, your character's going to stay alive. If you don't, you get one last cool moment. If you really don't, it's it. There's been a lot of suspense at my table because of rolls like that. Next, I would add the D20 crit system brought to us by Brendan Lee Mulligan, I don't remember what he called it off the top of my head, but basically the way it works is this: if you roll a nat 20 or a natural 1, you will roll another D20 and see how well or how bad it's going to go. I think they're not called epic rolls, but they're called, I don't remember what they're called. But basically, in this situation of combat, if you roll a nat 20 and then you roll on that second D20 another nat 20, you would instantly kill that target. Otherwise, there would be a kind of a tiered system of how well that crit would hit. Now, in DC20, it's you roll in that 20, you just deal 2 extra points of damage. Now, I would say that would if that's your base. Let's say you roll that D20, you roll it 1 through 5, 1 extra point of damage, 5 through 10, 2 extra points of damage, 10 through 15 or 11 through 15, 3 points of damage. 16 to 19, 4 points of damage, and then the 20 is the instant kill. Make that second crit roll really, really cool, because let's face it, we want D20, we want a nat 20 to really, really mean something. Everybody loves when they roll a nat 20. 2 extra points of damage is cool, but it's not insane. So that second roll will determine that, and it's you don't get the extra amount of damage that you were looking for. Bummer. But you could make it really, really great. And if you wanted the 2 points to be the base, then okay, 1 through 5 is 2 points. 6 through 10 is 3 points. 11 through 15 is 4 points, and then 16 through 19 is 5 points, with the nat 20 being that. Or again, you can scale it however you want. I'm just going with Dungeon Coach's by 5 system. And then the opposite end, we've got the nat 1s. Now, nat 1s, this is going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be how bad did you mess that up? And nat 1 being the worst possible thing, the worst possible backfire. I like Professor Dungeon Master's system where, especially if you're casting a spell. Casting a spell, nat 1, I think that the way the DC20 does it is it doesn't go off. You expend the resources, not the items. If you had casting materials, you don't expend those, but you expend the action points, you expend the magic, and that's it. Whereas I would have you roll a nat 1, and then if you roll another nat 1, the spell doesn't just not go off, it backfires. I know Professor Dungeon Master has a tiered crit failure system, a weapon breaks, or you trip and you fall and take some damage, or everyone hates the whole hit one of your allies thing. But again, it's all about the tier. If you worst case scenario being the 1, the lower you roll, the worse that outcome is, and you can easily tier that in a way that's gonna make it what's gonna happen. If it's a martial character, here's what happens on tiers of failure with a nat 1. If you're a spellcaster, here are your tiers of failure on a nat 1. And I think that would be an awesome addition to DC20 more than any of the other things that I have mentioned so far, because he already plays that tiered system, and I think this is a homebrew rule from Brendan Lee Mulligan that I think is just really cool, and I've had other DMs just like talk to me and be like, I love that little addition, because that possibility of instant killing your enemy, that's epic. That's something that people remember for all of time in a story. Like, you're taking this big bad, let's just say it's not going well, you're all but dead, it kind of feels like it's over, but there's still that chance. There's a 5% chance to roll that nat 20. There's another 5% chance to roll another nat 20, which I think in it's like a 0.025% chance of rolling back-to-back nat 20s. Again, Alan, you're the math teacher. You would know it better than me, but that chance, when everything's going bad, that could be a game changer, a legendary moment in a game. And I think just leaving that open there, because I think that having like an instant kill or instant knockout, you can even make an instant knockout. Maybe you're dealing non-lethal damage, and you're trying to knock someone out, and then there's your chance. Because in most D&D, knocking out and killing instantly, not like, unless you're playing as a high level character versus low level character, it's not really a possibility. So I think this opens that up. So above all the other rules, that's what I would implement more than anything else. And even if DC20 does not add these rules, I hope you like them. I hope you find inspiration from them, and they'll enhance your games. So thanks for listening, guys. Again, I'm the Nerd Doctor, here to diagnose what's wrong with your RPG game and here to help you fix it. And don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons if you enjoyed the content.